everybody, Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully one's had a good day or having a good start to the day whenever you catch this video here. Because we're going to be taking a look ahead now. We're into the middle of October here, and we're going to be starting to look more and more towards November. So this is as good a time as any to get the fresh off the press monthly outlook here. So let's get a sneak peek at November here. Let's keep in mind also that these outlooks are just that. These are not final forecast, and we could see something entirely different, possibly. It all depends on how certain parameters come into play. That being said, make sure you're smashing that like button, decimating that subscribe button, and obliterating that share button. That being said, here we go. So I'm going to give you a little spoiler on this. And I mean, you can obviously read that this is mostly going to be an above average dominated month. But when I looked at some of the model data that is available, albeit limited, this may kind of throw you off a little bit. The highest probability of temperatures being above average, of course, is definitely out towards the southwest right now and over towards Alaska, especially northern Alaska. But over here, the confidence isn't quite as high, and you're probably wondering why is that. And even then, just what exactly are you going to see? One thing to make note of is just because you see the above average temperature probability or percent chance being higher based off what you see here does not mean every day is going to be like that. So just because your average temperature is 65 degrees, this doesn't mean you're going to get a 90-degree day. So just wanted to make sure that I clarified that. But also the same would be inverse if it was cooler than average, of course. So I mean, that should pretty much go with standard deduction there, but just wanted to make sure I clarified. But despite all of that, this doesn't mean that we're going to be even 5 or 10 degrees above average here. And when I looked at model data, you'll see a little bit of a depiction of that. Also, we'll go ahead and take a look at the precip chances. This is actually very typical of an El Nino pattern as we get further along into this time frame here to start out the winter. We can get an increased amount of moisture towards northern Alaska, and then you can also get a little bit of increased focus towards the southern states as far as precipitation is concerned as well. Florida's definitely looking like they're going to have the highest chance for above average precip, but all across the southeast, into the Appalachia, and even into the mid-Atlantic, we'll have to watch you too. As far as drought conditions are concerned, while it isn't being necessarily depicted on here, probably because the averages aren't super high over here towards the southwest, I'm concerned about drought issues over here, and then of course towards the Great Lakes. We've been dealing with that on and off throughout the year, so definitely concerned about them as well. But when we go ahead and actually look at some model data here, we can look at this from a week-to-week basis, which I find a little bit more useful than just looking at a typical just 30-day outlook, because it's an average at the end of the day. This is what we could see from week to week. This is the final week of October that we're looking at right now. We'll make a follow-up video towards the end of the month to make sure that we have everything covered here before we get into November. But as you can see here, if you compare the 26th, a lot of warm air towards the heart of the country and out towards the west. But when we go to the next week to start out November, we see a lot of that warm air has now moved off to the east, and now a new area of cold air has now developed. This is actually going to be a pattern shift here, and this is going to shift into what's called a negative PNA, where we have cooler conditions out west, warmer conditions out to the east. And this isn't going to hang around for long. Eventually warm air will start to take back over as we head towards the 9th. Warmest air looks like it's going to be out towards the northwest and midwest mostly, and then as we go further along here, we'll start to see that warm air retreat more to the north. Like I said, this is a little bit more typical of an El Nino-esque pattern. I made a video the other day actually discussing how that all comes about, and if you want, that link will be in the top right hand corner for you to watch. But this is definitely looking pretty typical of an El Nino pattern. But we do look at one point, I did notice a bit of ridging coming into play, and I've mentioned it vaguely on some videos, although I didn't anticipate it being this far out in November. I still don't have too much model data access to this point in time. but definitely something that I'm keeping a close eye on there. But we'll get into that a little bit more in depthly in a moment. Then as we get towards November 30th, above average temperatures are really starting to take over towards the eastern half of the country. I do anticipate maybe towards the end of the month we could be setting the stage for another cool down to start out December. Of course, like I said, we're only in mid-October. We'll probably see this begin to shift a bit more as we make the final outlook, which is usually done right at the end of the month, which would be, of course, Halloween. So that's what we'll be doing there. And then if we look at the precip anomaly here, we'll take a look at it over the next few weeks. Of course, start with week 1. No real surprises there. Below average precipitation is likely across the eastern half of the U.S. Not to say that this means that you will get no precipitation, but it will be less than what you expect over the course of a week, no matter how big or small that number may be. And the same goes for if you're in the green. Most of the storm track definitely seems to be more to the north right now, so as a result, storms are going to be more to the north, with the jet stream being more active. Things have been kind of more zonal towards the heart of the country right now. Of course, with Hurricane Norma, we have increased likelihood of precipitation over here towards Cabo San Lucas and Baja, and of course towards western Mexico. As time goes on, we're going to see that moisture make its way towards Texas. No real surprises there. And then, of course, this will increase the rain chances for the southeast. Out west, it looks like it's a little bit drier, so with cooler air as well, usually it'll end up being dry. So this is not very surprising. Like I said, this is not atypical of an El Nino type pattern, and we're going to continue to see this kind of cycle week to week here. See little pockets of moisture develop over towards the southern states. In particular, I'm thinking Texas and the Ozarks here are going to be really active over the next couple weeks. Over the weeks to come in November, I should say. And then as time goes on, as we get towards the end of the month, we do see an indicator for an increasing amount of moisture towards the heart of the country and maybe working its way off to the east here. So that being said, we can actually start to get a little bit of a better look here. Like I said, I can't get a full view of the entire month of November, only up to about maybe 30 days max, so that will put us right towards the middle of November. But this is a look at what our air masses are looking like currently and what they can look like down the line here. Keep in mind, this is likely to change, and this is actually the only model that goes out this far. I really don't like using it too much because I don't want to set any sort of expectation, but since we're here now, I may as well use it. Of course, as we head towards the weekend, we get a little bit of a cool down going on here towards the east with this frontal boundary that's going to be coming through, increasing shower and storm activity. And then here comes the warm air mass starting to take over as we get towards the end of this month. We do have a couple of cool air masses, and with this may come the chance of severe weather. Not a lot of details on this still, a lot of questions that I have there, so I'm not going to fully invest any sort of thought into that just yet, but I just know that I am watching. But as time goes on here, this is heading towards Halloween. Definitely looking like the classic negative PNA setup. Again, cooler out to the west, warmer out to the east, especially towards the northern tier of the eastern U.S. And then as time goes on, continue to see this little flip-flop pattern begin here, especially as we get into November. See these cooler air masses. This is probably going to be associated more with fronts or frontal boundaries. And then as time goes on, we'll be switching back between cold, warm. Towards the middle of the month, around the 10th and onward, an interesting little cold air mass begins to come into play here. This could really knock off those temperatures if this comes into fruition. But keep in mind, I have always said on this channel, anything that's further out than 5 days, can't put too much merit into it. We have superseded far beyond that here. We're nearly 500 hours out. So like I said, that's literally just hearsay right now. We could literally just watch this turn the other way so easily. As time goes on here towards the 14th and onward, like I said, we're continuing to see the trend of a flip-flop type pattern throughout the month coming into play. So as a result, we could see multiple storm systems, chances for severe weather, and maybe if the timing is right with cool air coming into play or cold air coming into play with moisture, we could even see maybe a winter storm. Like I said, not really in a position to put any sort of merit into any of this because look how far out we're looking. So don't like I said, don't put too much merit in, take it with a grain of salt. That being said, I guess the last thing we'll do here is take a look at what the jet stream in the upper levels of the atmosphere could look like, because this could also be another indicator for storm tracks, storm systems, and much more. So what I'm trying to do here, if I can get it to move, is get this, get us a good picture of what's going on right now. And just as I was saying before, this is where the most active weather seems like it's going to be to start out this upcoming week. And then what happens as time goes on here, we do see the subtropical jet begin to pick up a little bit here at the upper levels. This will of course increase the chance for severe weather. A little secondary area could be developing there, but we'll also have to see how this translates at the lower levels of the atmosphere. Of course, looking this far out, like I've mentioned before, not going to try to dig into this too deeply right now. Once we get other models available to our viewing, then we can start to talk more. But here's another pattern shift right here as we start the month. Definitely seeing a bit of a trend here, because at this point we're still in range of a few models, GFS in particular, but I can see that a little bit of troughing tries to develop, very weak right now to start out, but as time goes on, we get further along, we see a ridge begin to try and develop out west, trough develops out east. This is right around the 10th like we were talking about earlier, and then it shifts over. We see the ridge begin to become more dominant over the east, troughing begins to happen out west, and we just continue to really flip-flop all throughout the model run from that point forward. So definitely definitely a very active pattern. Looks like it's going to be taking shape here as we go through the month of November, or at least the first half of it. Of course, like I said, we'll get more details as we draw closer and closer to the end of this month, so stay tuned for that. But that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it useful, you know what to do. Smash that like button, decimate that subscribe button, hit that share button as well, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. It's been Metalhead Weatherman. I'll see you till next time.